And then they go on to say that they may do when directed by the Pope or the Superior of the Society of Jesus, the Jesuits, whoever does not accept the Pope, let him be exterminated. This is like a bloody oath. It's just incredible.
Well, and he mentions that they were expelled from so many countries. And see, what they don't realize is that the Jesuits were hated by a lot of secular rulers. In fact, in 1624, Protestant Denmark forbade all Catholic priests from entering the country under pain of death. And the Jesuits were expelled from many places because the Jesuits were in charge of the education of the young. And so they stood in the way of the anti-Christian and revolutionary movements because they had a monopoly over the education of the young. And therefore, governments would also be rarely free of their influence. And so for that reason, they were hated by those who pushed for revolutionary and anti-Christian agendas. And that's why they tried to destroy them. And so it was not because they were conspiring to murder and so forth. It's because they were a huge force and an obstacle to people who tried to control countries and root out Catholic principles.
And also they bring up, and Alex Jones mentioned this when he was interviewing this guy, that I heard that the Jesuit order was formed, the SS was formed after a modeled upon the Jesuit.
Rockefeller followed the Jesuit plan.
And just these different things. Well, no, that doesn't mean anything. People can use something that works,
a good business
and
model,
implement that, obviously, into their own system of doing things. Going back to Hitler, by the way, Hitler would not even allow Jesuits to be drafted because he feared that they would try to convert the people. And obviously Catholics were viciously persecuted by also Hitler, too. In fact, the reason they mention a concordat with the Vatican is because the Catholics were being persecuted by Hitler. And so the Lutherans even had an agreement set up, and so he's blaming Catholicism for that. In fact, Hitler was not, even though some people may claim that he was born a Catholic, he left the Catholic Church early on, at an early age, and he never attended the Mass or received the sacraments after a very young age.
Yeah, and he says that the Inquisition was essentially the first police state, and so, in fact, this guy Chris Pinto said that the Catholic Church represents the very same evil promoted by the globalists who push for the global warming takeover and the New World Order. And he tried to, sort of draw an analogy to the Spanish Inquisition. Well, yet he praises Calvin, who really ran a police state in Geneva, where he would, have people go into people's homes, and if they were contradicting him, they could be penalized, and so that's fine. And he totally dismisses the secular histories which show that the inquisitorial courts were quite fair. They did have some, obviously, abuses, but on the whole, they were quite fair, and not merely as many people were killed as people say.
And most of it was, there were people that were claiming to be Catholic that were holding heretical.
Well, they only had jurisdiction over the baptized. And he also said that there were no boundaries for the Inquisition, sort of they were this roaming police force that could just go into any country. Well, that's not true. The Spanish Inquisition, for instance, only had jurisdiction in Spain. And this, it's just one of tons of theirs.
They have this, they say in the film, the Jesuit superior said, quote, "Then the Bible, with head erect and eyes flaming, threatens us with its venom. As soon as this cruel asp, with what fangs it gnaws us."
Yeah, the Bible.
Speaking of the Bible, and then they say that Rome has persecuted and killed the saints for reading the Bible for more than 1,000 years.
No matter that there's just overwhelming evidence for the papacy to anyone who's honest at all.
It just goes on and on. It's just amazing how many different things are in here. They're just really, it's almost incredible how vicious the attack was on Catholicism. I thought it would be bad, but I had no idea it'd be this bad. And the Jesuits killed Lincoln.
Oh, he also brought up, this guy Pinto, on on the Alex Jones Show, that basically this idea that you can kill heretics originated with Constantine, and St. Paul didn't do this. He just excluded them from the society, but Constantine and the Catholic Church started to then kill heretics. Well, God himself decrees the death penalty in the Old Testament for certain sins. Additionally, this guy Pinto said that Calvin was a, quote, Christian hero who, quote, fell in love with the Bible. Well, Calvin had Michael Servetus put to death as a, quote, as a heretic, and he was actually a heretic. He denied the Trinity. And so it's okay for Calvin to put someone to death. And Luther called for the death of the cardinals, called for the death of the Pope. His doctrines spawned the peasant rebellions, which killed tens of thousands of Catholics. They raided churches. But that's okay. But the notion that you kill heretics originated and was confined to Catholic states and Catholic authorities. No, the death penalty was practiced in Protestant states. It was for heresy. It was a capital crime in Protestant and Catholic states.
And just a few more, just to end this off. They say that once the Protestant translations of the Bible were produced, people finally could read the true words of the gospel, which were always contrary to the papal teachings of Rome. Sure. And he's talking about England. When the new king came in there, that was Protestant. He sought to reform England from idolatry and popery. And then they show a picture of the Pope being crushed by the Word of God, and the four evangelists stoning the Pope to death with the four Gospels, and on more of sort of, they say that the Pope is the true son of the devil, a bad man, an antichrist, an abominable tyrant. They say that they burned all English Bibles and the people who read them, including blind people and babies.
Yeah,
it's just incredible. They quote, of course, they say Rome is the great horror of Revelation 17. I mean, not just now, throughout its history. The Pope is the beast that cometh out of the bottomless pit and has power out of hell. They say the papacy should be slain. The papal antichrist will be destroyed at the second coming of Christ. On and on and on. And this is the film that Alex Jones wants everyone to see.
One other contradiction that's somewhat interesting is that they say that when Erasmus discovered Greek, it put to rest the translation of Luke 1, Hail full of grace, which they said was, a false translation upon which essentially Catholic false doctrine about Mary is based. And yet they also say that William Tyndale was this English Protestant, quote, martyr who gave the world the true English Bible. And so the Catholic Church tried to kill him because he wanted to give the scriptures to the English people. Well, his Bible has, Hail full of grace, ye, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. And so his Bible has the very translation which they say is false and which, the releasing of the scriptures did away with. It's just one of a billion, maybe not a billion, but contradictions.
Another one's pretty hilarious is that they say that there was a certain Protestant guy who seemed to help Catholicism in a certain way, and that the Jesuit offered him a cardinal's hat.
They said this Puritan who criticized the King James Bible. So they said this video, Lamp in the Dark, presents the King James Bible as basically heaven sent and releasing the scriptures to the world. And some Puritan, condemned it. And they said, well, he was quite friendly to the Jesuits, and so he must have been a Jesuit conspirator. And then they said that he was even offered a cardinal's hat. So a Protestant Puritan was offered to become a cardinal.
Yeah, in fact, here's what it says. It says, and though a bold and inflexible enemy to popery, he was offered a cardinal's cap. I mean,
he's not even Catholic, not a priest.
And people will believe this, though. They see, oh, really? Like Alex Jones. This is pure dishonesty.
Another interesting contradiction is that they say that Martin Luther's 95 Theses launched the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, and they show the picture of him attacking the Theses. Well, as is pointed out in our video, what you don't know about Luther, and you can find that on YouTube, Luther was not a Protestant when he attacked the 95 Theses. You can look at them online, read them. He believes in the Pope. He believes in the papacy. He believes in purgatory. He believes in indulgences, although he corrupts true Catholic teaching in some of those areas. He's not remotely Protestant at all. And so if they're saying that basically he was taking a stand for the true faith, they're destroying their whole argument.
The belief in indulgences, he still believed in that at that time, which also Alex Jones attacked that issue.
And so it proves that his whole, quote, faith was man-made, as we show in the video, but it also refutes their argument.